In the last winter of World War II, the waters off Japan's coast held a secret that would change the way Japanese engineers saw the war itself. Early 1945, an American F4U Corsair, one of the Navy's most feared fighters, went down after an engine failure. The pilot survived, but his aircraft didn't sink. Hours later, Japanese patrol boats found the wreck, floating, scarred, but intact. What they recovered wasn't just a piece of metal. It was a window into America's industrial power. For almost 3 years, Japanese pilots had faced the Corsair across the Pacific, from the Solomon Islands to the Philippines. They'd seen its speed, its firepower, and its toughness, but they'd never had a chance to look inside one. Now, for the first time, they could touch it, measure it, and understand what made it so different. The Corsair wasn't just another fighter. It was the result of a design philosophy that combined power, endurance, and precision in a way Japan had struggled to match. When the aircraft arrived at the Yokosuka Naval Air Technical Arsenal south of Tokyo, engineers gathered around like archaeologists uncovering a lost civilization. They began to take it apart. Every bolt, every spar, every curve of its strange inverted gull wings. Those wings immediately drew attention. They weren't straight like most fighters. They bent downward and then up again, giving the Corsair its signature M shape. The Japanese engineers realized this wasn't just for looks. It allowed the aircraft to fit a huge 13-foot propeller while keeping the landing gear short and strong. It was a clever balance of power and practicality. Inside the wings, they found craftsmanship they rarely saw in their own planes. Every rib, every piece of aluminum was stamped with absolute precision. It was clear that American factories worked with machines and tolerances far beyond what Japan could maintain in the final years of the war. Then came the surprise. Parts of the wings were covered in fabric instead of metal. At first, they thought it was outdated design. But when they tested the material, they realized it was a smart weight-saving choice. The Americans had used strong treated fabric, only where full metal wasn't needed, saving weight without losing strength. Even their simple solutions were backed by science. When they reached the Corsair's heart, the massive Pratt and Whitney R-800 Wasp engine, the mood shifted from curiosity to odd 18 cylinders to Rose, over 2,000 horsepower. The machining was so perfect that parts fit together like watch pieces. The Japanese engineers knew immediately this wasn't just about skill. It was about infrastructure. American factories could produce engines of this complexity by the thousands. Japan could barely make a few in comparison. The engine's two-stage supercharger, built to maintain power at high altitudes, revealed another gap. Japanese engines tried to mimic this system, but their materials and manufacturing simply couldn't keep up. The Corsair's engine was not just powerful, it was reliable. It could run at full power for hundreds of hours without failing, something Japanese aircraft could only dream of. The deeper they looked, the more unsettling the discovery became. The armor around the cockpit, the bulletproof glass, the self-sealing fuel tanks, every piece of this machine spoke of a design built to keep pilots alive. In contrast, Japanese fighters were built for agility and lightness, often at the cost of survival. For years, that philosophy had worked, until they met aircraft like the Corsair. The guns inside its wings, 6.50 caliber Brownings, were perfectly fitted, with ammunition systems that never jammed. Even the smallest parts, from hydraulic pumps to electrical wiring, showed the same level of quality. Nothing was random, everything had purpose. By the time the engineers completed their report, one truth had become painfully clear. Japan was years behind, not just in aircraft design, but in the entire system that made machines like the Corsair possible. America had mastered what Japan could not: mass production with precision. Where Japanese factories fought to build one perfect plane, American assembly lines built hundreds, all identical, all deadly. As the war drew to its end, the captured Corsair became more than a technical curiosity. It was a mirror, showing Japan what it was up against. When U.S. forces later entered Yokosuka, they found detailed reports, photographs, and fragments of a light aircraft carefully studied by Japanese scientists. Among them were the Corsair notes, a quiet acknowledgement of defeat not in courage, but in technology. The irony? That wrecked American fighter, once an enemy, helped inspire Japan's post-war rebirth. Engineers who studied it would later rebuild their nation's industries with new priorities: precision, quality, and discipline. Lessons first learned from examining the enemy's masterpiece. The Corsair flew again after the war, through Korea, and even into the 1960s, a symbol of endurance and innovation for Japan. Though its legacy was more than metal and engine war. It was a reminder of a hard truth: wars are not won by bravery alone, but by the power to build better, faster, and stronger. This is WWII Revealed, and this was the story of the fighter that showed Japan just how far the world had moved ahead.